I had always loved surprises. As a kid in Ohio, I'd cover my eyes at every birthday party, pretend I didn't know my parents were hiding in the next room with a cake, and still feel that lightning bolt thrill when everyone yelled, "Surprise!" I have dated. I carried that love of surprises into adulthood, into my marriage, into the way I showed up for the people I loved. So when my husband Mark told me he'd be in Palm Springs for a 3-day work trip, it didn't take long for an idea to spark in my mind. "You know I hate being away from you that long," he'd said, half smiling as he shoved shirts into his suitcase. "But this client is a big deal." "You'll be fine," I'd replied, standing against the doorframe of our small Los Angeles apartment. "I'll hold down the fort." He kissed me then, quick but warm, and for a moment I felt the same sense of safety I'd clung to for the past 7 years of our marriage. We were not perfect, but we were us. We had survived job changes, my miscarriages, his father's death. Surely a business trip in the desert was nothing. But that night, lying alone in our bed, the other side cold and flat, the idea came. What if I go surprise him? I pictured it instantly. I'd knock on his hotel door with takeout from his favorite burger place. He'd open it with that stunned expression he got when something truly delighted him, and we'd spend the weekend turning his boring conference into a mini vacation. Maybe it was silly, but after months of feeling like we were drifting, him working late, me taking extra shifts at the nonprofit, it felt like something big and romantic could pull us back together. The next morning I called his assistant, Hannah, from the break room at work. "Hey, Hannah, it's Emma Carter, Mark's wife." "Oh, hi, Emma." Her keyboard clacked in the background. "Everything okay?" "Yes, everything's fine." I lowered my voice, suddenly shy. "I'm thinking of surprising him in Palm Springs. Do you happen to know which hotel he's staying at?" There was a tiny pause, short enough that I might have imagined it. "Yeah, he's at the Desert Crest Resort. I can text you the reservation info if you want." "That would be amazing. Thank you." By lunchtime, I had a refundable plane ticket, a room booked with my credit card, and a nervous excitement fluttering in my chest. It felt impulsive, wild, completely unlike the cautious woman who usually spent evenings balancing our shared budget on Excel. On Friday morning, I tossed a sundress, sandals, and Mark's favorite perfume into a small suitcase. As I zipped it up, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "Mark, just checked in. Room's nice. Conference starts in an hour. Love you. Emma. Love you too. Knock 'em dead." My fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to type something like, "You have no idea what's coming." But I stopped myself. A real surprise meant total secrecy. At LAX, the world blurred into lines and announcements, coffee smells and rolling suitcases. I boarded the short flight to Palm Springs, with my heart pounding like I was running away from home. When we landed, the desert heat hit me like a wall the moment I stepped outside. The sky stretched impossibly blue over jagged mountains, the kind of postcard beauty people paid good money to see. The rideshare from the airport to the Desert Crest Resort took 15 minutes. I watched the city unfold, tall palms, empty pools glittering in the midday sun, cheap motels that had seen better decades. Then the resort appeared. White stucco buildings, bougainvillea spilling over balconies, a fountain bubbling in the courtyard. He's somewhere in there, I thought, clutching the strap of my bag. He has no idea I'm coming. At the front desk, the clerk smiled politely as I explained that my husband was staying here and I wanted to surprise him. She checked the system and nodded. "Yes, Mark Carter. He's in room 728. You're listed as a guest on the reservation, Mrs. Carter. Welcome." I hadn't known that detail, and a small warmth passed through me. He'd put my name on his booking. Another sign that this was a good idea. "What room am I in?" I asked. She glanced at the screen. "You actually have a separate reservation room, 732. Same floor." "That's perfect," I said slowly, surprised. I assumed his company would book everything, but maybe he wanted more privacy. "Thank you." In the elevator, mirrors reflected my nervous face back at me from 3 angles. I dabbed lipstick on, smoothed my waves, checked my sundress for wrinkles. My stomach fluttered like a first date. At room 732, I dropped my suitcase by the bed, took a deep breath, and walked back into the hall. 4 doors down stood 728, quiet and ordinary, a blue keycard light blinking softly. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, a little louder. "Mark, housekeeping." Silence. My heart sank. Maybe he was at a session, or networking, or whatever people did at conferences when they pretended it wasn't just an excuse to drink at hotel bars. I texted him, "Hey, how's the conference going?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Mark, busy, sitting in a breakout session. I'll call you tonight, okay? A strange, guilty thrill rippled through me. He has no idea I'm 10 feet from his door. I started to type back. Okay, love you, but stopped. Instead I wrote, Emma, sounds good, don't work too hard. Then I slipped my phone into my bag and headed for the elevator. If he was really in a session, I had at least an hour to plan. That's when I passed the housekeeping cart. A woman in a gray uniform was restocking tiny shampoos. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound casual. "Do you happen to know when room 728 is scheduled for cleaning?" She checked her list. "Already done this morning, ma'am." I nodded and walked on, not sure why that unsettled me. Of course they'd cleaned his room. It was almost 2 p.m., but a small, persistent thought nagged at me. If Mark was at the conference all day, who messed up the bed enough that they needed to clean it already? I shook it off. People checked in, took naps, changed clothes. It didn't mean anything. Not in the real world, not in my marriage. Still, as I rode the elevator down to the lobby to plan my perfect surprise, I could not have guessed that by midnight, nothing in my life would feel real anymore. I decided to make the evening special. If I couldn't surprise Mark in his room in the afternoon, I could still turn the night into something memorable. I wandered through the resort, memorizing where the pool glowed an inviting turquoise, where the hotel restaurant's menu boasted overpriced steaks and craft cocktails. My mind spun with scenarios. I'd text him later, ask about his day, pretend everything was normal until I appeared at his door with dessert, around 6 p.m. The sun began to bleed orange over the mountains, casting long shadows along the pathways. I returned to my room, showered, and dressed in a linen jumpsuit I saved for special occasions. I spritzed on the perfume Mark always said reminded him of our honeymoon jasmine and something warm I could never pronounce. I checked my phone. Nothing from him. Trying not to be disappointed, I ordered room service to his room. The plan felt spontaneous and giddy. 3 courses, dessert, and a bottle of wine, all delivered to 728. I'd time it so I'd arrive just before the food. At 7 p.m., I called the front desk. "Hi, I'd like to order room service to my husband's room," I said. "Mark Carter, room 728. I'm his wife, Emma Carter." "Of course, Mrs. Carter," the clerk replied. "What can we get started for you?" I picked dishes Mark loved: grilled salmon, truffle fries, a chocolate lava cake. Then, almost as an afterthought, I added, "And could we make that dinner for 3? Add another entree, maybe the chicken piccata and an extra dessert?" I hesitated, then laughed lightly. "He's, networking with a colleague." "I'd love to surprise them both." "Dinner for 3, she repeated. "Got it. Will be delivered in about 45 minutes. After I hung up, something about those words echoed in my mind. Dinner for 3. It sounded generous and thoughtful. It sounded like the kind of wife I wanted to be. Confident, generous, comfortable with her husband's colleagues. The kind of wife whose stomach didn't twist into knots every time he came home later than he'd promised. I waited in my room, watching the digital clock creep forward. At 7:35, I texted him, "Emma, how's your day wrapping up?" No answer. At 7:45, my hands were shaking. Not from fear, at least that's what I told myself, but from adrenaline. Surprises always made me jittery. Finally, at 7:50, my phone buzzed. "Mark, sorry, crazy busy. About to grab dinner with some people from the conference. Can I call you later?" For a moment, the world seemed to tilt. About to grab dinner that I had just ordered to his room. For 3, my rational brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe they were grabbing dinner at the hotel restaurant, and my room service prank would fall flat and awkward. Maybe he'd changed plans last minute. Conferences were like that, right? But another part of me, the part that had noticed the hesitation in Hannah's voice, the made bed that needed cleaning, the increasing number of late nights, whispered, "Emma, something isn't right." I typed slowly, "Emma, sure, have fun, love you." I stared at the screen. He didn't respond. 30 minutes later, my heart hammering, I stepped into the hallway. This time, I didn't bother to fix my hair or reapply lipstick. I just walked, counting the doors, listening. The hallway was quiet except for the distant hum of the ice machine and muffled laughter from far away. When I reached 728, I paused. A tray sat on the floor outside the door. Empty plates stacked neatly, silver domes turned upside down. A small piece of paper peeked from beneath the folded napkin. My breath caught. Carefully, I picked up the paper. It was the room service receipt. At the top, in tidy print, it read, Room 728, Carter, Mark, dinner for 3. Below that, listed in black ink, were the items I'd ordered. The timestamp read 7:11 p.m. The tip line was scribbled with Mark's messy signature. He had received the food. He had been in the room. At 7:50, he had texted me that he was about to grab dinner. I stood frozen in the hallway, the paper trembling between my fingers. Something cracked inside my chest, small at first, like the invisible fissure when you tap a glass. I could still pretend, still explain, still rationalize. Maybe the conference people had dropped by his room. Maybe they'd eaten quickly and headed out. Maybe his about to grab dinner meant a second round. I should have walked away. I know that now. I should have respected whatever boundary existed between my intentions and his privacy, gone back to my room, and waited for answers in the daylight. But instead, I leaned closer to the door. That was when I heard it. A sound so soft. At first I thought I imagined it. Laughter. A woman's laughter. Then a low, familiar voice Mark's muffled through the door. Another voice answered, higher, teasing. A thump, like someone dropping onto the bed. I pressed my ear to the cool wood. Words blurred into indistinct noise, but the tone was unmistakable. Relaxed, intimate, tinged with the drunken looseness of a night that had already gone too far. My hands went numb. The hallway spun slightly. For a second, I couldn't breathe at all. That's when I heard another noise, a breathy moan, sharp and unmistakable, and my body froze. I don't know how long I stood there, nailed to the carpet, the receipt burning in my hand. It might have been 30 seconds. It might have been 5 minutes. Time stretched into something thin and cruel, like a rubber band pulled nearly to snapping. Voices rose and fell behind the door. A clink of glass, another laugh, the creak of the mattress. Each sound was a tiny knife slicing into the version of my life I had believed in that morning. A wave of heat rushed up my neck, followed by a cold so intense I started to shiver. I could walk away, I told myself. I could leave, pretend I had never come, never heard, never known. I could let him carry this secret alone, but another thought cut through the fog. If I walk away, I am choosing not to know the truth, and I had promised myself after the second miscarriage, after the months of silence where we pretended we were fine, that I would never again turn away from reality just because it hurt. My hand lifted before my brain fully agreed. Knuckles rapped against the wood, sharp and loud. The sounds inside stopped instantly. Silence fell heavy on the other side of the door. My heart pounded in my ears. I didn't move. Then, hurried footsteps, a muffled curse, the scrape of the security chain. The door cracked open 2 inches, the metal latch still engaged. Mark's face appeared in the gap, pale and startled. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Emma?" he whispered, like my name was a secret. "Hi," I said, my voice barely more than air. "Surprise." His eyes were wrong, not just surprised wrong. Glassy with guilt, pupils dilated. I smelled wine and something else, something floral and unfamiliar. "What are you doing here?" he stammered. "I wanted to surprise you," I answered. The receipt crinkled in my fist. "I flew in this afternoon. I ordered dinner. For you, for your colleagues." His gaze dropped to the paper. I watched the exact moment he recognized it. Color drained from his face. "Emma, I..." A woman's voice floated from inside the room. "Mark? Who is it?" The world narrowed down to a pinpoint. He flinched like he'd been hit. Just a minute," he called over his shoulder, then looked back at me, panic rising in his eyes. "Emma, please, we can talk about this, but not here. Not in the hallway." "Then open the door," I said. My voice surprised me steady, low, far calmer than I felt. "Let me in." He hesitated. For one horrifying second, I thought he would say no. I thought he would choose her, whoever she was, over me, right there in the doorway of 728. Then he unlatched the chain and swung the door open. The room looked like a stranger's life. Half-empty wine glasses on the table, the cotton comforter pulled roughly toward the middle of the bed, a pair of red heels near the desk, the glow of the TV casting flickering light over everything. And on the bed, clutching the sheet to her chest, sat a woman I had never seen before. She was maybe late 20s, brunette, pretty in an effortless, commercial kind of way. Her eyes widened when she saw me, and a flash of recognition crossed her face. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're Emma." I blinked. "Do I know you?" She swallowed hard. "Hannah," she murmured. "From the office. I'm Mark's assistant." Of course, the voice on the phone. The woman who sent him calendar invites and booked his flights and apparently shared his hotel bed while I believed he was at a breakout session. My vision blurred at the edges. Sounds became distant. I had the surreal sensation of watching myself in a movie, some Lifetime plotline I would have rolled my eyes at a month ago. "Emma, listen," Mark said, stepping between us. His hands shook. "This is not what it looks like." A bitter laugh tore its way out of my throat. "Really?" "Because it looks exactly like what it looks like, Mark. It's complicated," he insisted. "We were just talking, and things got out of hand. It doesn't mean anything. It's just what?" I snapped. "Just your assistant? Just a mistake? Just a betrayal you planned on smoothing over when you came home with conference swag and stories about networking?" His jaw clenched. For a moment, anger flickered in his eyes, as if I were the one wronging him by showing up. Hannah slid off the bed, keeping the sheet wrapped around her. "I'm so sorry," she began, voice shaking. "I didn't mean to." I held up a hand. "Please, don't." My gaze dropped to the receipt still crumpled in my fist. Slowly, I smoothed it out and laid it on the dresser. "I ordered this. For you. For the three of us. Even now, I'm the one feeding you." Silence again, thick as smoke. Something inside me shifted, then not just broke, but rearranged itself around the wreckage. A trembling clarity set in. I stepped back toward the door. "I'm going to my room," I said. 732. Same floor. You have until morning to decide what you want to say to me. After that, I'm done listening." "Emma, please," he begged, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. "Don't touch me." Hannah looked like she might cry. Mark looked like he already was. I walked out, closed the door gently behind me, and somehow, on legs that didn't feel like they belonged to me, made it back down the hall. It wasn't until I slid my keycard into the lock of 732 and the door clicked shut that my knees gave out. I collapsed onto the carpet, back against the wall, and finally let myself sob. That night, time became a loop. I'd cry until my chest hurt, then go completely numb, staring at the patterned hotel carpet as if conversation hearts had been woven into it. I'd pick up my phone, thinking I should call someone, my best friend Lily, my sister Grace, my therapist Dr. Patel, but every time I tried, shame choked me. How do you put this into a sentence? "Hey." So I flew to surprise my husband on his work trip and found him in bed with his assistant. "How are you?" Around midnight, there was a knock on my door. I froze. Reflex made me reach for the chain, but I stopped myself. Instead, I said, "Who is it?" "It's me." Mark replied softly. "Please, Emma, just talk to me." Every instinct screamed to ignore him, but another part, older, quieter, trained over years of compromise, whispered, "You owe it to yourself to hear what he has to say, even if it's garbage." I opened the door a crack. His face looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, hair mussed. He wore jeans and a t-shirt I'd bought him for his birthday, the fabric wrinkled. "Can I come in?" he asked. I thought about the bed behind me, its crisp white sheets still perfectly made. I imagined him sitting on it, leaving invisible stains of guilt. "No," I said. "We can talk out here." He swallowed, nodding. The hallway was quiet, the carpet muffling our words like a confessional. "Emma, I am so sorry," he began. "I have no excuse. What you saw, it was awful. I hate that you had to see that. You're sorry I had to see it," I said slowly. "Or sorry you did it?" His shoulders sagged. "Both. All of it. I never meant for this to happen." "How long?" I asked. He looked confused. "How long what? How long has it been going on with Hannah?" He flinched, then exhaled. "A few months, since the Austin conference. We crossed a line. But it didn't mean anything, Emma. It was just, if you say it was just sex, I swear I will scream." I cut in. His jaw snapped shut. I watched him struggle, watched the excuses line up behind his eyes only to falter. For 7 years, I had loved this man. I knew his tells. The way his left eyebrow twitched when he lied. The way he rubbed the back of his neck when he felt guilty. He was rubbing his neck now, so hard the skin turned red. "I've been lonely," he said finally. "You've been so consumed with work, with the nonprofit, with trying to build a life with you," I asked, my voice shaking. "With grieving our babies? With holding us together while you worked late and forgot our therapy appointments?" His face crumpled. "That's not fair, isn't it?" I whispered. "Because from where I'm standing, Mark, I see a man who checked out of our marriage months ago and found comfort in the nearest convenient distraction." He sucked in a breath. "Hannah isn't... Don't," I snapped. "Don't you dare defend her right now." We stood in silence. The air conditioner hummed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, a TV murmured canned laughter. "Do you love her?" I asked at last. The question hung between us like a live wire. "No," he said quickly, too quickly. "No, I don't. It's not like that. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you." "People don't cheat on the ones they love," I said. "That's not true," he protested, desperate. "People make mistakes when they're hurting, when they're scared." I was scared, Em. Scared that you didn't need me anymore. Scared that you were building a life that didn't have room for me. "And your solution was to build a secret life with someone else?" I asked, incredulous. He closed his eyes. "I know how it sounds, but I swear to you, if you give me another chance, I will end it with her. I'll switch teams, travel less, go back to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes." A month ago, I might have latched onto those words like a lifeline. I might have swallowed my pride, my hurt, my instincts, and clung to the hope that promises could fix everything. But tonight, in a hotel hallway that smelled like industrial cleaner and lemon, something in me had shifted. "Mark," I said quietly, "I don't even know what another chance would look like right now. I can't make that decision in a hallway, in the middle of shock." He nodded, tears standing in his eyes. Okay, that's fair. Can we go home tomorrow? Together? We can talk to Dr. Patel, figure out next steps." "I'm going home tomorrow," I said. "You can do whatever you want." His face fell. "Emma, I need space," I said. The words tasted strange but solid. "I need to be somewhere that isn't this hotel, this hallway, this nightmare. I need time to remember who I am when I'm not cleaning up your mess." He flinched as if I'd hit him. "I deserve that," he whispered. "I know I do. But please don't give up on us yet." "I'm not making any promises," I replied. "Not tonight." We stared at each other, two people who, hours before, had shared a life, a bed, a future. Now we shared only broken pieces. "Good night, Mark," I said. He hesitated, like he wanted to say 1,000 things. Then he nodded once, turned, and walked back down the hall toward 728. I closed the door, slid the chain across, and leaned my forehead against the wood. For the first time since I was 23 and walked down an aisle toward him, I let myself imagine a life where Mark wasn't the center of my story. The thought terrified me. It also, in some tiny, forbidden way, felt like relief. The next morning, Palm Springs looked cruelly beautiful. Sunlight poured over the pool, glittering on the water as if nothing had happened. Guests in floppy hats ordered mimosas. Children splashed and shrieked, and somewhere a speaker played soft jazz. I checked out without seeing Mark. He texted once, early. "Are you sure you don't want to drive back together? I can leave the conference." I stared at the message on the shuttle to the airport. "Emma, I'm sure." I turned off my phone for the flight. Back in Los Angeles, the familiar gray of the city comforted me. The Uber ride from the airport to our apartment felt longer than the flight itself. Every street, every billboard we'd joked about, every coffee shop we'd frequented as broke newlyweds, was now smeared with a thin film of betrayal. When I opened our apartment door, the smell of home hit me. Coffee, laundry detergent, the faint trace of Mark's cologne embedded in the couch cushions. It made my stomach twist. I dropped my suitcase in the hallway and walked straight to the bedroom. The bed, our bed, looked suddenly foreign. I imagined unknown hotel sheets, the red heels on the carpet, the way Hannah had clutched the blanket to her chest when she realized who I was. On autopilot, I stripped the bed, stuffing sheets and pillowcases into a trash bag. I knew it was irrational they were clean. Our bed hadn't been violated, but I needed some physical act of purification. I ran the washing machine on the hottest setting, added an extra scoop of detergent, and then just stood there in the tiny laundry closet, listening to the angry churn of water and metal. When my phone buzzed, I almost didn't check it, but habit is a powerful thing. It was a text from Lily. "Hey, you okay? You went quiet this weekend. Want to grab drinks tonight?" My throat tightened. If there was anyone I could tell, it was her. "Emma, can you come over instead?" "Lily, be there in an hour." When I opened the door an hour later, Lily took one look at my face and dropped her tote bag. "Oh my God," she breathed. "What happened?" I didn't answer. I just stepped aside and let her in. We sat on the couch, my legs tucked under me, my fingers wrapped around a mug of tea I hadn't asked for but she'd made anyway. The words came in fragments at first, then in a flood. The flight, the hallway, the laughter, the receipt, the woman on the bed. By the time I finished, my voice was hoarse and Lily's eyes were blazing. "I'm going to kill him," she said simply. A watery laugh escaped me. "You can't kill him. He's still my husband." The word felt like a shirt that no longer fit. "Not if I have anything to say about it," she muttered. Then softer, "Emma, I'm so sorry. You don't deserve this. Not after everything you two have been through." I thought of our fertility treatments, the nights we'd held each other and cried, the way he'd kissed my forehead in the doctor's office and whispered, "We'll keep trying, okay? I'm not going anywhere." Except he had gone somewhere with softer lighting and less responsibility. "What do I do?" I whispered. Lily curled her legs under her, mirroring me. "First you breathe, then you take care of yourself. Therapy, friends, whatever you need. And you don't make any big decisions until you've had time." "I told him something like that last night," I said. "He wants another chance. Says he'll end it with her, go back to therapy, travel less." "And how do you feel about that?" she asked gently. I stared into my tea. "I don't know. Part of me wants to pack his things and toss them onto the sidewalk. Another part keeps remembering our anniversary trip, the way he carried me into the ocean because the water was too cold and I wouldn't go in alone. I keep thinking, maybe this doesn't have to be the end." Lily reached over and squeezed my hand. "It's okay not to know yet, but whatever you choose, make sure you're choosing from your worth, not your fear." "My worth," I repeated quietly. It sounded like a language I'd once spoken fluently and forgotten. Later that afternoon, I finally turned my phone back on fully. There were messages from Mark, from his mom, even an email from Dr. Patel reminding us of an appointment we'd skipped the previous week. I replied only to one. "Emma. Hi, Dr. Patel. Something serious has happened in my marriage. I'd like an individual appointment as soon as possible." Her response came an hour later, offering a slot the next morning. I booked it. As the sun set over LA, painting our small balcony in gold, I realized something. The most important meeting of my life wouldn't be in a hotel room with my cheating husband. It would be in a therapist's office, with myself. Dr. Patel's office smelled faintly of vanilla and books. I'd sat on this couch many times before with Mark beside me, knees barely touching, both of us fumbling for the right words to explain why we felt so far apart. Today, the empty space to my left felt like both a wound and a possibility. "So, Doctor," Patel said gently, after I'd recounted the events in Palm Springs, "you did something brave. You chose truth, even when it hurt." "It doesn't feel brave," I replied. "It feels stupid. Like I walked into a burning building and acted surprised when I got burned." She tilted her head. "You followed an impulse rooted in love. Your husband betrayed that love. That's not stupidity, Emma. That's his choice, not a reflection of your worth." I stared at my hands, twisting the ring on my finger. The gold band felt heavier than usual. What if I never saw it coming because I didn't want to? I whispered. There were signs. Late nights, canceled plans. The way he checked his phone and smiled and then brushed it off. I thought I was paranoid, so I stopped asking questions. "Sometimes," she said, "our brains protect us from pain by refusing to connect the dots. Recognizing red flags would have meant facing the possibility that your marriage was in deeper trouble than you wanted to admit." So I looked away. I said, "You survived," she corrected. "But now, you have an opportunity to do something different." "Like what?" "Like choosing yourself," she replied simply. "Regardless of whether you stay married or not, your healing begins with you, not with his apologies, not with Hannah's regrets, not with anyone else's behavior." The word choosing lodged in my chest. I had spent so much of my life choosing other people, my parents, my students, Mark. My job at the nonprofit was built around giving time, energy, compassion to girls who didn't get enough of any of those at home. I was proud of that, but somewhere along the way, I had stopped including myself in the list of people worthy of that care. What does choosing myself even look like? I asked. That's the right question, she said. Let's start small. Over the next weeks, small turned out to be a series of seemingly ordinary decisions that, together, began to rewrite my life. I moved Mark's things into the guest room not as a final verdict but as a boundary. He protested at first, but when he saw I was serious, he stopped arguing. I told him that, for now, we would attend therapy separately. He didn't like that either, but he agreed. I started going on long walks after work, leaving my phone at home. I cried sometimes, sure, but I also let myself notice things I'd rushed past for years. The jacaranda trees bursting purple in June, the old man who waved at every passerby from his balcony, the mural near our subway stop that read, "You are still becoming." At the nonprofit, I opened up to my boss, Maria, and told her I was going through a rough time at home. Instead of questioning my professionalism, she said, "Take the days you need. And if you ever want to turn this into a support group for our girls, betrayal, boundaries, all that messy stuff, we could talk." Do teenagers even want to talk about boundaries? I asked. Yes, she replied, especially the ones who never saw any modeled at home. The idea stuck with me. At night, when Mark stayed at a hotel or at his brother's place, to give you space, I journaled. At first it was just rage and heartbreak poured onto the page, but gradually questions emerged. Who am I if I am not Mark's wife? What did I lose piece by piece long before Palm Springs? What kind of love do I want, for myself and the girls I mentor? As summer turned to fall, my life didn't magically become easier. Some days I woke up convinced I should give him another chance. Other days I was sure I wanted a divorce. But through it all, a steady thread of self-respect began to run through my choices. I started to understand that the real tragedy wasn't just what had happened in room 728. It was how little space I had allowed for my own dreams, my own voice, before that night. The climax of our story didn't happen in a courtroom or a dramatic airport chase. It happened at our kitchen table, on a rainy Tuesday night, with lukewarm tea between us. Mark had moved back in temporarily after months of separation, at my request, not as a reconciliation, but as an experiment. Therapy had forced him to look at his childhood, his fear of abandonment, the ways he had numbed his grief over our miscarriages instead of sharing it. He was doing the work. I could see that. But the question remained. Was I still willing to be his partner? Emma, he said quietly, breaking the silence. Dr. Patel asked me this week what I would tell our future daughter about what it means to be a man. It kind of broke me. I looked up. His face was older now, lined by months of honesty and sleepless nights. What did you say? I asked. I said I would tell her that a real man owns his mistakes, he replied. That he doesn't expect forgiveness like it's owed to him. That he doesn't stay in a relationship just because he's scared of being alone. And he doesn't ask his partner to do that either. He took a shaky breath. And then I realized, he continued, that if I'm honest, really honest, I don't know if I deserve to be your husband anymore. Tears pricked my eyes. Deserve has nothing to do with it. Maybe not, he said, but I need to say this. I love you. That hasn't changed. But I also see how much you've grown these past months. You stand up for yourself now. You don't disappear into my moods. You're brighter, Em. And I hate that I'm the reason you had to learn that the hard way, but I can't pretend I haven't noticed. I swallowed hard. Are you saying you want to leave? No, he said quickly. I'm saying I will follow your lead. For the first time, truly, if you tell me you want to rebuild this marriage, I will commit to that fully, for as long as it takes. If you tell me you want to end it, I will not fight you. I will show up for the paperwork, for the hard conversations, for whatever you need. I will not guilt you, or bargain with you, or weaponize my own pain. His eyes met mine, steady and sad. Because the one thing I can't live with, he finished, is knowing that you stayed with me out of fear or obligation, instead of out of real choice. The rain tapped steadily against the window. For once, I didn't rush to fill the silence. In that pause, my entire life unfolded in my mind. The girl who met Mark at a college protest and thought his laugh sounded like home. The young woman who believed love meant never walking away. The wife who tolerated small betrayals of attention and time long before the big one in a Palm Springs hotel. I saw the girls at the nonprofit, their eyes weary at 15, asking quietly, "Miss Carter, how do you know when it's okay to leave?" I heard my own answer, still forming, still trembling. When staying costs you yourself. I realized with stark clarity that staying in this marriage, however improved, however remorseful he now was, would always carry the echo of what happened in room 728. I could forgive him someday, maybe, but I would never again unknow that he was capable of that choice. And I was tired, so tired of building my life around what someone else was capable of. "I don't want to stay married," I said. The words left my mouth and hovered in the air like a fragile bird, beautiful and terrifying. Mark closed his eyes. 2 tears slipped down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them away. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." A sob clawed its way up my throat, but underneath it, something else stirred. A strange, quiet pride. This was not the ending I had imagined at 23, but it was an ending I chose. Divorce, it turns out, is not one big moment. It's a series of small ones. Signing papers at a courthouse with beige walls, dividing furniture you once picked out together, canceling streaming services that still think you're one household. It's returning the wedding china to its box and deciding, after a long pause, to donate it to the girls' shelter because you don't want your next chapter to be haunted by celebrations that never happened. It's waking up on the first morning, after he moves out, and realizing the apartment is too quiet, and then, gradually, realizing that the quiet is not trying to kill you. Our divorce was final on a Thursday. I didn't cry when the judge said, "The marriage of Emma and Mark Carter is hereby dissolved." I didn't cry when Mark squeezed my hand in a brief, careful gesture of goodbye. I cried later, alone in my car, in the parking lot, when I realized that the name Carter on the paperwork still belonged to me. I could change it, of course, but for now, I kept it. Not for him, but because I had grown into this name in ways that had nothing to do with our marriage. The girls who called me Miss Carter, the grants I'd written, the articles I'd published about trauma-informed education. My life would not be reduced to before Mark and after Mark. It was mine, ever unfolding. That evening I hosted the first official meeting of a new program at the nonprofit. On the whiteboard in green marker, I'd written, "Boundaries and Brave Hearts, Girls Relationship Group." 7 teenagers slouched in metal chairs, arms crossed, faces skeptical. "This sounds cheesy." One of them, Kayla, said bluntly. "It might be," I replied. "You can tell me at the end." They smirked, but no one left. We began with stories not about Palm Springs or hotel hallways, but about the everyday betrayals they'd grown numb to. Fathers who left and came back and left again. Boyfriends who demanded their passwords. Friends who joked about their bodies until the words stuck like gum on skin. I shared some of my story too. Not every detail, but enough. I thought love meant staying no matter what, I told them. But I've learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away, even when you still care. Especially when you still care. Does it ever stop hurting? As it ever stop hurting? A girl named Mia asked quietly. The room fell silent. I thought of the way my chest still tightened every time I saw a man with Mark's haircut. I thought of the phantom weight of my wedding ring on my finger, the part of me that would always remember how it felt when he said, "I'm not going anywhere." "It changes," I said honestly. "Some days it hurts less. Some days it still hurts a lot. But the more I build a life that I'm proud of, a life that's mine, the less space there is for that hurt to control everything." They nodded, some slowly, some not at all, but they were listening. After the group ended, as I was erasing the whiteboard, Kayla lingered. "Hey," she mumbled, "the stuff you said? That was, kind of, not cheesy." I smiled. "Highest compliment I've gotten all day." She shrugged, looking away. "My mom stayed with my stepdad even after he, I always thought that's what you're supposed to do. But maybe you don't have to." "You don't," I said softly. "You deserve better than that. Your mom does too." She nodded once, then left. I stood in the empty room, marker faintly staining my fingers, and let the quiet settle around me. The ending of my marriage was a sadness that would live in me for a long time. I knew that. There would be weddings I'd attend alone, doctor's appointments I'd face without a partner, holidays where I'd have to renegotiate traditions. There would also be joys. A year after the divorce, I took myself to Palm Springs. Not to the Desert Crest Resort. I wasn't that much of a masochist, but to a small, sun-bleached inn with a turquoise pool and faded lounge chairs. I brought a stack of books, a journal, and a stubborn determination not to let that city belong only to my worst memory. On my last night, I walked alone through the warm desert air, the sky dimming to purple. I passed restaurants lit with fairy lights, couples leaning close over wine. For a moment, loneliness washed over me so strong it made me dizzy. I stopped, hand on a palm tree, breathing through it. This is sadness, I told myself. Not a verdict, not a life sentence, just a feeling passing through. At the corner, a busker strummed a guitar and sang a song about starting over at 35. I laughed under my breath. When I reached my inn, I sat by the pool and opened my journal. On a fresh page, I wrote, 1 year ago, I thought my life ended in a hotel hallway. Today, I am still here. I am still becoming. The pain did not kill me. It grew me. I looked up at the mountains, silhouettes against the darkening sky. My story, I realized, did not have the neat happily ever after I'd once imagined. Mark and I were not back together. There were no miracle babies waiting in a nursery. The scar of betrayal still ached when the weather changed. But there was something else now, woven through the sorrow. A quiet, resilient hope that didn't depend on anyone else's promises. A hope rooted in the knowledge that I had walked through the fire of truth and come out the other side not unburned, not untouched, but undeniably alive. And for the first time, sitting alone in Palm